I'm looking to do something that I've never done before. I want to triple my revenue. I want to get a C-suite in because I've been, I'm the only C here, and I have a bunch of folks who are working for me in these capacities. I've never put a C-suite together, and I want to triple, quadruple my revenue. Oh shit, that sounds really big, right? That's the project. That's what we're working on. But the flip side of that is the capacities that you are going to build along the way, the curriculum, if you will, to help you accomplish those goals. They just don't exist right now. We use the goal to build the curriculum and the curriculum to build the goal.
Hey, welcome back. This is Core Conversations. Today we've got a special guest, Nick Musica. He's an executive coach. He's got a deep background in digital marketing and advertising, and he works with a lot of key executives in a very unique way. And we're just really happy to have you on the show, Nick. Thank you for joining.
Awesome. Thank you, John.
Great. Well, so Nick has a unique background, and Nick, I'd love to hear a little bit about your story of, how did you get started? And I think it was more in like the digital marketing space, and that kind of led you into this executive coaching role. Can you give me a little background on your story here?
Yeah, sure. So I've been in the digital marketing space, a lot of SEO and web design since 2003. Co-authored a book in 2009 and taught at NYU for a hot minute. And in 2019, I stepped out of my W-2 role and opened up my consultancy Optics Zen, focusing mostly on SEO and web design. It was initially SEO, but the more we did the work, the more we realized if we could just cut out the middleman of the web designer in some ways, or work with them directly, we can get ahead of some of the problems and not have to correct things, but build intentionally the SEO into the product so that we can get the results that we want. So that's where the web design comes in. And then in November of 2022, when ChatGPT became a big conversation, I started to lose a fair amount of content contracts. We were producing 25, 50,000 words a month sometimes. And here's why we lost it, because a lot of folks opted culturally to write a lot of volumes of very vanilla content and publish it, which had its own bad effect on Google and rankings. But no one ever came to me saying, "Hey, Nick, you know what I want? I want a shit ton of really mediocre content. That's what I want." No one ever said that, but people pivoted that way. It's just what happened.
Right.
So we lost I lost contracts, which wasn't great financially, but even worse, I lost interest in this category in some way that I couldn't really quite identify. And that was the bigger problem, because you can make more money, right? You can spin up more services, more products. We all have two kidneys. I'm joking, but you could sell one of those. There's different ways to make money, but you can't manufacture your interest. It just it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. So I started to see what was available for me, um, and I started to reflect on when I was a W-2 working with teams and mentoring my teams. And I used a tool. I still use a tool. It's called the Harrison Assessment. It's a behavioral assessment. It's not a personality assessment. So it's a behavioral assessment that identifies your go-tos for behavior and also the places you avoid. So it'll show you in very black and white. It's amazing. It is uncannily accurate. It's amazing. And I had this run on me in 2017. And when I came out of that debrief, I want to use this tool to work with my teams. So you see your operating system in black and white. It's amazing to see it. When I got my Harrison read to me, debriefed to me, I scored a 10. So the score is 2 to 10. Two are traits I avoid, and 10 are my go-tos. I don't even think about it on a daily basis. I just do it. My preferences, high preferences, right? And I scored a 10 in want stable career. And the gentleman running me through this was like, "We should talk about this 10 in stable career." And I was like, like, I have no interest in talking about this. I'm really okay with paying my bills. I'm like, that's important to me. And he
Right.
goes, "Yeah, but it's a 10. And I go, yeah, like, what are you not getting? He goes, well, let's take a look at your risk score. And I'm like, this is not what I signed up for, right? I'm like, what am I getting out of this? He goes, it's a 2.4. And I go, of course, my want stable career is a 10. Of course, risk is going to be low. And he goes, well, think about it this way. What's available to you right now from a career growth, make money perspective? Because your risk score is a 2.4. Imagine if it was a 3 or a 4 or 5. What if it was smack dab in the middle of the scale of a 6? Doesn't matter one way or the other. 6, not strong feelings one way or the other. And I'm tracking him, and he goes, because right now, your only option for the rest of your life is to work for someone else until you die, because you have a 10 and want stable career, and that's the only path.
Huh,
Okay,
interesting.
what else you have in here? I got exposed to the Harrison personally for my own interest, working with a coach, and then I've been using it quite uh, with a lot of people getting some great results. And so as I was taking a look to see, well, what do I want to be when I grow up? I started to think about the coaching and where does that land for me? What are the results I've gotten for folks, and how do I feel about those results? And I turned the dabbling of coaching that I was doing for years. The focus was growing digital marketing, and I was dabbling with the coaching with the Harrison and some other methodologies, intuition coaching. But I decided I'm not going to dabble anymore. I have gotten some good results with folks, and this is important to work with people directly on their operating systems and to see where their habits are holding them back, and what they can do as choice points from there, because we can only see so much for ourselves. And what got us here has been super effective, but typically doesn't get us where we want to go now.
It's interesting. The risk assessment is so to help me understand, right? It's like how willing you are to take risks within your
That's
career.
right.
And then the
Uh,
10 was a
yeah,
stable career.
that's right. It was
So you
specific.
were
Yeah,
on like no risk,
yeah. Oh, you're like
consistent risk.
almost zero risk. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
If I, so it's funny. We talked about this prior, but for the people watching, I used to be a wealth management advisor. And so we would run risk assessments on portfolios. And if we were a 2 and a 10, it would be like, fixed income, short term fixed income, right? Very little risk, very little reward, but you're going to maybe keep up with inflation at best, right?
yeah.
Maybe,
That's right.
right? So okay, so how has that shifted now with you? Have you done the assessment again, and has those numbers changed for you at all?
Yeah, I've for me, I've taken the assessment 3 times, and it's different every time. So here's the rule of thumb for this assessment: is generally speaking, every 2 years, it's good to take the assessment, because your world shifts, because you're growing and shifting and changing. Unless, of course, nothing changes, and and then maybe there's no real reason to take it, which also may be a real reason to take it because you don't see any shift over time, right?
Right. So what else is
Yeah.
there in that? What other things is it measuring besides risk and like stable career? What are the other metrics that you really look at in that assessment?
Yeah, yeah, it's a great question. There's about 175 behavioral characteristics that show up. Not all of them are in there. The most relevant ones show up there, but it takes into account 175. So there's a few that are very popular for folks. Like there's a communication paradox of frankness and diplomacy. How people show up in terms of being frank, and how people show up in terms of diplomacy. So think about someone who's very high and frank. May come across very harsh. People may not know, what the feelings are behind the words. But someone who communicates frankly is, right to the point each and every time. And if
Sure.
they're a 10 in frank and a 0 in diplomacy, a 2 in diplomacy, then that could feel harsh for folks. And that person could be thinking, I don't understand why my stuff isn't getting done. I don't, like, people don't like me. I don't understand. Like, I'm looking for relationships with folks. I'm a manager, but it doesn't really come across that way because the lack of diplomacy isn't there. Conversely, if you're high in diplomacy and low in frankness, you sort of beat around the bush a lot. And people walk out going, what the hell does John want? Like, he just couldn't be clear and direct. I don't understand. So ideally, give or take, having a 7 or 8 in frankness and 7 or 8 in diplomacy gives you two tools to choose from. So you can be diplomatic when you need to be, and you can be frank when you need to be. And you help to have that very balanced communication style so people know what you want. You're not being harsh about it. You're not beating around the bush about it, but you're being just a good communicator. That tends to go pretty well.
Yeah, it does. And I feel like you would have to be pretty frank, but also have the ability to be diplomatic and all at the same time, right? If you want to be an
That's
effective communicator and an effective leader.
100%. Yeah. So the phrase, treats everything like a hammer, right? So if when you're really high with traits, like mine was a stable career. I treated every job like a hammer from the stable career perspective. I'm going to stay in this role. I'll be in this role for a long time. And once I saw that not working for me, there were other choice points available. And I
Right.
always, for 20 years, John, I wanted to work for myself, but I was never going to. With a 10 and stable career, it was never going to happen. So I dabbled a lot in freelance as well. And then one day I quit my job. I just quit my job. I gave 4 weeks notice, 5 weeks notice. I didn't have a contract. I didn't have one single contract when I quit. And I gave myself 4 weeks to hedge bets. And I didn't really have anything that was signaling it's going to be walking into a busy time, but this is 2019 before the pandemic. Um, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. I just can't. And so here, my entire business plan was make it work. That was the entire business plan. Make it work. I couldn't tell you necessarily why. I've been doing the digital marketing for a long time, and I had a network of folks. So those are certainly some reasons, but why I walked into 40 to 60 hour work weeks for the next 3 to 4 months out of the gate, all paid time. It was a magical scenario that um, I want to say just happened, but not everything just. There's not a lot that just happens. Things happen for reasons. It was the right
Sure.
time for me.
So what was your initial business model? Was it coaching or was it more on the digital marketing side?
Yeah, my strength at the time was digital marketing.
Got it.
So I led with that, and the coaching was always fun. I was dabbling in it. I saw the results. It was fun. When ChatGPT came out and the content contracts went missing, I started to look for something else that would jazz me up. And the coaching, it was time for it to stop dabbling and start to get more serious about it.
Interesting. Yeah, I think coaching is one of those things that when people really tap into it, it can take you from where you are to another level and then another level. And so you have the ability to grow with the right. I mean, if we play sports, right, we all had coaches.
Totally.
I've used business coaches and like mental coaches that I would almost classify as like kind of like bridging the gap between like a psychologist and a coach because we worked a lot on like what's going on behind the scenes and then bring out really what needed to be worked on most effectively.
That's right.
And it sounds like you could talk about that for a while. Right.
Yeah, and before we get to that, like, I mean, think about the coaches you've had, right? And who has coaches? I mean, Michael Jordan had a coach outside of the Bulls. Margot Robbie has a physicality coach for her roles. Like, but does she need one? You look at her, and go, I don't think you need one, but she works with a physicality coach
Right.
for her roles. Kelly Slater, who's a 11 times world champion. Like, oh no, he's just really, really good at what he does. Well, maybe he's put the time in. He also grew up in Florida, right, where the waves are garbage. But 11-time world
Right.
champion. He's worked with coaches throughout his career. So the best tend to
Right.
get coaches to work with, to keep at the
Right.
top of the game.
Have you read the book Relentless? That guy that coached Michael Jordan and Kobe and
Yes, such a good book.
yeah. I just read that book recently, and it's interesting. He calls them cleaners, right? He's like the cleaner mentality will always show up, and they push everybody
Always.
to a level of excellence, and they will always be the one taking the accountability and the responsibility to make sure that they show up, no matter what stadium they're in or what night or how they feel. if they're sick or tired, doesn't matter, right? Those are the kind of
Doesn't
people that
matter.
they have coaches, right? Like Michael
Yeah.
Jordan worked with this guy, and he was like, "I'm paying you to not work with anybody else in my competition field." He said, "I want you to be my coach so that nobody else can get to this level." Right. And so I do find a lot of value in coaching, and I've done a good bit of I've worked with coaches in my field in different aspects, and it's always been wildly helpful because it exposes, some of my blind spots and weaknesses and helps me get better at everything that I'm doing.
Yeah. And I've worked with people who, they make, I'm exaggerating, but they make $30,000. They make $30 million. And it sort of doesn't matter. What matters is we did the best we could with the tools and the behaviors that we have. And at some point, it sort of just stops working. And so if you're a $30 million company and you want to get to $100 million, that's a stretch. So how do you do it? And chances are it's not by doing the same exact things that got you to 30. Some of those things you can carry over, but there's going to be a ton of things that you need to develop as new competencies. And not just you, but your team. Because collectively, we have gotten to 30 million. So how do we collectively get to 100? And coaching is one way. Assessments are one way. Group coaching is another way. Getting folks to come in and train the team, operations. There's more than one way to do it. But coaching is very effective because it's meant to generate, be self-generative and to have a different level of self-awareness so that you can then see what is not working, so that you can then make different choices so they can then get different results.
Yeah. So let's say you bring on a new client or you're in the process of on like trying to get somebody to become a client. Um, who is your ideal who is your ideal customer?
Yeah, I tend to work with a lot of folks who are either one of two things. They're either a self-employed entrepreneur and or their teams as a result, or
Okay.
they're an individual. So I'm working with a CEO who is a self-employed entrepreneur right now. And I'm working with the CFO who is not going through the company to work with me. They came to me because they're trying to figure out what's next for themselves.
Got it.
So
Got
those tend to be the two types of people who show up for me.
it. Okay. So let's talk about the CFO guy because I kind of understand that role a little better, right? Um, so when he says, "Hey, I want to figure out what's next," like what does that look like from a coaching perspective? What do you guys what do you focus on first, and what's the first like
Yeah,
pillar
it's a
of
great
that?
question. Yeah, so it's really around, well, why is what's next important to you? What does that look like? Why does that feel like that's a thing for you? Almost like I was talking about stable career, right? But a little, but from their perspective, it's more proactive. Like they know they want something, they're just not quite sure what it looks like. So the
Okay.
questions around, well, why is that important? How long has this been going on? What's the cost? What's the cost if nothing changes in the next 12 months? Right. And that
Mm,
for a lot of folks, that feels awful, right?
mhm.
Because by the time that we're having the conversation, it's already cost something. They're bored, they're
Sure.
tired, they're uninspired, right? They have a few more plays that they want to play before they retire, but they just don't want to write it out. There's
Right.
enough of writing out. There's enough of people just think, "Meh," like just skating through. It's boring.
Yeah. I think excitement is because everybody talks about happiness, but I think excitement is the real goal, right? You want to be excited about what you're doing and like getting up in the morning, like on fire to go do
Yeah,
what it is that you're going to do.
engaged. Yeah, engaged. And this individual actually, they tried to be disengaged from their role. Like I'm going to give it like 60% of my effort. And for this person, the way they operate, like, that's more than a lot of other people's 100%, that 60%. But they came back and they're like, I can't do it. Well, let's talk about that. What does that look like? What does that feel? And more importantly, what is that building habit wise for you? because
Yeah.
it's building disengagement. And is that what you really want to bring over into this next new thing that we're discovering together? This 60% of yourself? No, let's when it's time to leave, it's time to leave. But
Yeah.
let's just recognize that it's not a fit anymore. But let's not start creating bad habits that we're gonna have to detangle in 12 or 24 months. That's not a good idea.
Right. Right. So are you helping them find the next path? Is there like clarity in, are you kind of helping guide them to find it on their own?
It's a yes and, but here's what it really comes down to is
Okay.
70% of the work is in the client seat, right? I'm there helping facilitate all of it, having the space for
Right.
the conversations. I mean, most folks don't even have the space for the conversation. As as largely a solopreneur, I get a tremendous amount of value just talking about what's going on a day to day basis with a coach. Because it's either I'm either talking to my wife or my cat, right? And 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 they don't want to talk to me about what's going on all the time. So when I can sit down with a coach and be able to express that and get a reflection back and get observations back and have choice points laid out in front of me, well, that seems like that could be exciting for you, Nick. Or that doesn't seem like it's working out. Is there a different way to do it? And holding that space for someone, you tend to get a good result when you do that.
100%. Do you work with a coach yourself?
I do, multiple,
Good.
and ups and downs through the times. I mean, I've worked with a story coach, I've worked with an executive coach, accountability coach, performance coach, right? And sometimes these things are wrapped up into one person, but those facets tend to show up quite a bit. And so, yeah, I'm working with a couple right now.
Okay. Do you do any, so outside of the Harrison assessment, and I do want to continue on that topic, but do you use any other like personality profiles like the Myers Briggs or any of the,
I don't. I know a lot of folks find value in them. It never really spoke to me. And I got to tell you, the assessments as a whole never really spoke to me until I took the Harrison and I saw it wasn't like, what turned me off from some of the other assessments was this persona, this archetype. And I'm like, it just feels a little broad.
yeah,
it just never felt actionable to me or as actionable as I wanted it to. And the Harrison is extremely actionable. It's extremely actionable. Like what happens if you stay a 10 in stable career? Well, you know exactly what happens. What happens if you never
right.
increase that risk score? You know exactly what's going to happen. And then when you increase the risk score, well, what happens? Everything else in the Harrison shifts around and you're focusing on risk. I was only focusing on risk, just a little bit more. It wasn't about bringing stable career down. It's never about bringing the high value down. You don't focus on that. You focus on the bringing the low value up, and then there's other balance that happens across the
Interesting. So if risk is at 2, stable career is at 10, let's say you bring the risk to a 5, what happens to stable career inversely?
Well, in my case, because my bad habit was stable career was the next job, shall we say? It was habitual. What opened up
Got
for
it.
me was well working for a scrappy little startup, and then from there it went to self employment. In my case, um, it was interesting to see the 10 and stable career. And I reached out to Anne, the woman who trained me on the Harrison, and I told her about the situation. I'm pretty sure her response was, "I've never seen a 10 go from stable someone with a 10 from stable career go to self employment. I've never seen that before." I was like, "Oh, that makes me feel good." Well, I mean, and now there's a whole lot of work to do being self-employed. But the opportunity for change is available. You have to be made aware of it and want to do it.
Fair. That's fair. So, um, how long has how long have you been doing the executive coaching? Like, how long has that been going on?
Yeah. So I've been dabbling in the coaching since 2018 with the teams that I was growing, with folks outside of that. But it's been the past year where I started to really hunker down and take it seriously.
Okay. And then are you still doing the digital marketing piece as well?
I
Is it
am,
kind of a
yeah. So
dual?
for Yeah, it's totally dual. I mean, so the deal that I have with myself is I will continue to do the digital marketing specifically for referrals, specifically for existing clients. I mean, it's easy. For me, I've been doing it for 20 plus years, right? I know the moving pieces. I know how to put them together. It's easy. Not to say that there's not challenges, but I understand how it all works. Um, but I'm not going to get out there and talk about it. Certainly not in the day and age of, I mean, if you were in this field, and you go to LinkedIn and see everyone slinging their thought of the day, like I have no interest in being part of that conversation. I don't want to be the experience police or I don't want to roll in that, but I do want to do good work for my clients, and I do want to do good work for folks who show up with referrals. But what I'm focused on growing is I'm growing the coaching business.
Got it. Okay. With the and I just want like one more question on the digital marketing piece.
Yeah.
With that side of things, is it ads? Is it like meta ads focused?
Yeah,
Is it
it's SEO specific. So
okay?
getting folks visible in Google, Bing, answer engines, ChatGPT, that type of thing.
Got it. Okay. Interesting. And then is there any AI overlay in your process? Are you using any of the
A little bit. Um, so I use it as a thinking partner sometimes. And to be really clear, to not to not hand over my thinking ability to it, but give me something to react to. It's a discovery tool. It's a research tool. It is not a production tool. That I think is the major difference. How I see people abuse is the wrong word. Lean on it too much. I heard the story of um, there's a young writer in their career, young in their career, and then they ran out of credits. And the boss comes to him and says, "So can you get this done by the end of the day?" He's like, "No, I ran out of credits." "But you're a writer." "Yeah, I ran out of credits." Like, is that how it works now? Right? Really?
Yeah,
You just offload all the effort and then you clean it up so it's a little less vanilla? Come on. Like that's
yeah,
how much we have so much vanilla out there. Like don't don't use it for that. I mean you can, but it's gonna read like vanilla. So I do use it as a research tool, not as a production tool.
yeah. It's a really helpful tool if you know how to use it, but it can never replace uh, the human element, in my opinion. I think it's helpful to you know do time consuming tasks efficiently, but
Yeah,
if you're just using it to do everything for you, it's never going to be as good as you could have done it
for
on the
sure.
front end.
I created a little database of local businesses around a specific niche. It was super helpful. I could have Googled my face off, right? And found the same information. But this did it in a fraction of the time. And then I asked to have it export as a CSV, right? So it did the research quicker, aggregated it better, and then exported it to CSV. Like, that was amazing. That was like a half hour to an hour of work. And then once I had
Right.
the process down, I can go back and do it for other aspects. And it had the history. So it completely beat up Google from that perspective. Um, but as a tell me what to do tool, why would you do that? Right? Here's how I think about it. Like, WordPress is wonderful. We work with WordPress quite a bit. And it didn't make everyone a web designer. It made web design easier for web designers. Microsoft Word, it's a wonderful tool. It didn't make you a writer overnight. ChatGPT didn't make you a marketing director overnight because you asked for a 12-month marketing plan. Give me like it didn't. Maybe it made it better than what you were, but now everyone is operating at this level of vanilla. So great. If that's what you want to do, have at it. But I choose to not do that.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. It is good for helping you like do research and find information quickly and aggregate it. And I use it often for a lot of different things, but um, there's still a human element that we need to always be able to tap into. And so for me, it's an enhancement tool, right? It helps. I want to help people with tools to make things more
Totally.
efficient. And and from my background as an advisor, you know, it was a lot of sales and getting in front of people, right? And the things that I just really didn't enjoy doing, I'm using it now for like email campaigns. So I can have a big pile of email accounts sending out every day, just touching on, and I couldn't do it in my time. Like I wouldn't have time to do what it's doing.
Yeah.
I also don't want to spend my time doing that. Right. So it does have its place in certain business avenues. Right. So, but it never will replace this type of a interaction. Right. We'll never be
Yeah.
able to have like an intellectual conversation, or we might one day, but I don't want to be around for that. Like I'll be in Costa Rica or somewhere where there's no robots walking around. So,
I love the framework of I use it for the things that I don't like to do, as well as it gives me time for the human interaction, the
right.
value of the human interaction. I mean, we are since COVID. I mean, we weren't great before it as a culture, but since COVID and not having human interaction, and now we're like, you know, it's even better having less interaction. And I've been guilty of it. I got really good at COVID. I got so good. Like when it was over, I was like, I'm not going outside. I could just stay here forever and do my thing. I'm perfectly good with that. Not healthy.
Yeah.
So the more
No.
human action we can have, um, I mean, not necessarily the better. That's not good either. But we definitely need more than what we're getting right now. It's like we have. I live in San Diego. We have a deficiency in vitamin D in San Diego because
Oh,
so much sunscreen. This is my understanding, right? So like
interesting.
we have a deficiency of human interaction. But what about all the social media? But what about all the podcasts? But what about all the things we consume, the Netflix? That it's not social interaction. You need more, you need actual interaction with people.
You do. It's interesting the COVID topic, right? Like I remember they said it was like we had to work from the office before COVID, and then they said you can't come to the office for almost 2 years. And then it was like, yeah, now you have to come back because we have all these big real estate deals and we're paying a lot of money for office space and nobody's in the office. And I do think that being in the office is very helpful, but we all learned how to do our jobs effectively from home or the home office. And most of the meetings were on Teams or Zoom. A lot of my clients were all over the country, so I wasn't going to actually meet with them in person. Um, but having human interaction in the office was really helpful, and being able to just like pop into my partner's office and say, "Hey, what do you think about this?" And it could be a quick conversation and have like body language involved with a communication rather than just a email or a phone call is important. And so when we take that away, it reduces the quality of work and we miss things, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. And then you normalize isolation. You normalize a bunch of bad shit that, um, in the long run, it's not a good result.
Yeah, isolation is a killer. Isolation is just like a slippery slope into anxiety, depression, getting caught into a loop. When you're working with clients, let's say on the coaching side, how are you identifying things in the assessment that you target? Like, what's the first, like, what are you looking at first when you're saying, okay, somebody came to me looking to get better or to change careers and you take the Harrison assessment? What's your like go to direction wise?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question, and it sort of depends. So the Harrison will help. It's one lens. and starts to boil up some behaviors and competencies that folks may or may not be aware of. Because it will show you your go-tos, and that's typically the first thing that people go, "Yeah, that's me." Like, I'm seeing myself right there. And then you go to the opposite end of it, where they're like, "Oh, I don't know," just like I did. I was like, "There's no negative. It's a blind spot. I didn't see it." Right? But then once you start to see it, now you can start to see this more holistic view of yourself. So there's a lot in that. It's like a 40 to 60 page report. There's a lot in there to peel out, to peel off, and act on. So typically coming out with 1 or 2 action items is a lot on there, because 1 or 2 new behaviors, we can't just change the operating system overnight, but starting to work on 1 or 2 things will start to change things. The other, the other thing is we're getting clear on what we're working on and why is it important. So when someone shows up, and I have a client now, he's a hoot. He's a surgeon, and he showed up with one goal, and then halfway through our time together, 12 weeks, he's like, through this conversation, I realized I just don't care about that. It's not important to me. I thought it was important. It's just not important. And he had 2 goals when he came to me, and I says, Which one do you want to work on? What's most important to you?" And he goes, "This is the one. A is the one." And 4 or 5 sessions in, he's like, "It's not that important." Okay, so do you want to talk about B, or is there something else that's, because of our conversations and other things, that is more important to you to talk about, to use our time? And he's like, "I'm really happy that we got to clarity around this thing that's not important, and even more so, made this other thing more important. Let's focus on that." Oh, cool, great. I mean, that's a great result, identifying what is not important to you and what is important to you.
Interesting. So, I mean, you don't have to share, but what was the like previous and then realized importance for the surgeon?
Topic
And
wise,
all, yeah, like what was was he originally focused on, and then what did it shift to once he started doing the coaching work?
yeah, I'll keep it broad, but it was more relational. Um, and he's like, "Oh, like I'm really okay with how my relationships are. Like I've sorted it out enough. I can see why they are that way, and now that I know the facets that have um, created the outcome, like that seems to make sense. Like that's given my role and the folks I'm talking about, that seems to make sense. I'm okay with that. But this other thing over here, finances, um, that that is different. That is more challenging now that I think about it. There's real estate, and there's startups, and there's 401s, and there's these other things, and my goal is X, Y, and Z. Oh, okay. That sounds complex. And that sounds like we should be talking about that. Especially when the other thing when the other thing doesn't matter.
Because obviously, somebody that got to become a surgeon has a hard work ethic and a brilliant mind to kind of combine to get that level of expertise, right? Like you don't just show up and be like, I want to be a surgeon, and like it takes a lot of schooling, it takes a lot of you have to, like you have to pass all those tests, right? You have to become one.
Y-
So he was
You
obviously a
need some
sharp
skills.
human,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And you're like working with like leaders in industry, and they're like, I need to get better in all these areas, but really they're probably pretty good in a lot of areas. And then it's like dialing in on like what is missing that needs attention that
Yeah.
can improve the
That's right.
quality of their experience in life. Right. It's like
Yeah.
because this is not a dress rehearsal. Right?
Right.
We continuously iterate and evolve and learn and
Yeah.
grow. And
Yeah.
um, you know, I learn something every day.
Yeah.
And with relationships and with work and with myself. And the more I push the envelope, the more I learned. Because if you're in motion and you're going, like you're gonna hit walls and obstacles, and you're gonna be like, oh,
Totally.
like work is going well, but my relationship is struggling because I didn't balance the trade as much as I could have,
Yeah.
or I didn't
Yeah.
communicate effectively.
The one thing that I think, the surgeon client, he's a great example, and it pertains to all of us, right? Like and it's just it's so specific, it's so specialized what he does, the surgery, right? Like he nails it. You can't not be good at that, or else you just don't do it, right? Like he's very very good at it, and so his skill set is baked in. His work skill set is baked into that. But if you were to think about, well, maybe I want to do something else, is that skill set going to carry over? There's some things will, some things won't. Like the work ethic, yes. The diligence, yes. But he is the king of the surgery room, right? When you step into, if he were to, for argument's sake, if he were to go into a boardroom, or if he were to be a C-level of a company, the dynamics change, the complexities change,
Yeah.
the goals change. So what's going to be available? What are the choice points? Not the same ones. What are the habits that are going to be helpful over here versus over there? Not the same ones.
Right.
And that scenario that I just described, going from here to there, or the different context of this and the same person, we all go through it at some point or another. And we all go, why is it not working? I don't understand. I'm doing everything I can. I'm working harder, longer. I'm doing all the things I know how to do. Yeah, because it's something that's over here. You can't quite see it.
Interesting. So does any of this work like connect to tie into like psychology work with like the shadow of self and deep rooted belief systems? And do you work in
Fun.
that
That's a
space
great
at all?
question. Yeah, I mean, the coaching certainly has roots in psychology, without a doubt. Neuroscience, there's a bunch of disciplines. In terms of shadow work, I have not heard that term as it applies to coaching. I've heard that term applied to psychedelics. So if we were to get into psychedelic coaching,
Mm.
um, then I would say yes. But from the executive coaching perspective, not not so much. That's been my
Do you
experience
ever
anyway.
incorporate that into your practice?
Psychedelics,
Yeah.
I incorporate that into me, not into my practice though. At least I have historically, yeah. I have a
Yeah.
very good relationship with a cactus, yeah, that I've had since 2017.
Interesting. Yeah. I've done
It's a
some work
magical plant.
with psychedelics as well. And it's interesting, like if you don't do it for like a party perspective, right? But you do it for like a mental reset and or like a connecting back to your true self, right? And or
Yeah,
healing.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. That's right.
I've been, I've been down to Costa Rica a few times and done the ayahuasca retreats, and
Oh,
that is a profound experience and
yeah,
wild, a wild awakening of truth within and acceptance of what is and what has been, and like gives you a steady platform to walk into the now fully. And
yeah,
it's a really interesting concept to think that
yeah,
people have been doing this for thousands of years, right?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I would love to work with folks on that integration aspect of what showed up in those ceremonies, and then how to integrate that and move through it, because it could be a lot, as you know. I mean, it's a lot of information very quickly, and then you get to figure out what to do with it. It's the start, right? Sitting with one of those plants, it's the start of things. It's not the You don't walk out going, and everything is better. You walk out going, now I got some work to do.
Yeah. And it can actually be like, if you, like I've seen people come in holding on so tightly to control of like their emotional world and the story they tell themselves, and leave with like an integrated week of work, and a couple nights with the medicine, and leave a shiny, bright, joyful, alive, free human that they look
Totally
different.
different.
Like they look completely
Totally different.
different. And you see it and you're like, wow, that, I don't know if you could have done that in a year's worth of therapy. Right. And like
Yeah.
it, it's an interesting tactic to use. So yeah, we don't have
I'm
to.
a big fan. Yeah, I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of San Pedro for myself. I've sat with that cactus more than once. and I've gotten a
I,
ton of value.
interesting. So, not to get too far off topic, but I could talk about that all day. Um,
Yeah.
just because it's like one of those things that science and medicine want to avoid talking about, but it's been a medicine you know for so long that just the earth provides for us, and
Yeah.
it's really an interesting thing. But when we like look at it, like, okay, we have career, we have relationships, we have family life, and then we have our own internal relationship with ourselves. And how do we best like utilize all of the things we have so that we can be most effective for all of the avenues of life? And when you work with clients, how does that look? Is it mostly just like business related, or are you kind of like tapping on every pillar to help people grow in in each aspect?
Yeah. Yeah. It's so, yeah. Another great question. So when people show up, it's about what are we doing and why are we doing it? Right. It's a project, it's a
Mm,
job, it's something in that vein, right?
yes,
The goal, shall we call it.
right,
However, there's two sides to this coin, this coaching coin, when people show up. It's the goal that I'm going for. And if it was, if John, if you showed up and you said, "Hey, I want to rinse and repeat the same thing I did yesterday," Nick, I would say that we have no conversation here, John. Like, I'm a bad use of your time, buddy. Do something else. But if you're like, I'm
right,
looking to do something that I've never done before, I want to triple my revenue. I want to get a C-suite in because I've been, I'm the only C here, and I have a bunch of folks who are working for me in these capacities. I've never put a C-suite together, and I want to triple, quadruple my revenue. Oh shit, that sounds really big, right? That's
right.
that's the project. That's what we're working on. But the flip side of that is the capacities that you are going to build along the way, the curriculum, if you will, to help you accomplish those goals. They just don't exist right now. So we use the goal to build the curriculum and the curriculum to build the goal.
Got it. I love that. That's good. That's really good.
Super fun.
And how long does it take typically with when you're working with somebody? Like, what does your timeline look like with a client?
Yeah. So the standard engagement is 12 sessions over 6 months. And it's designed that way uh, because it takes a while for findings to show up. It takes a while for behaviors to change, for integration to happen. The change doesn't happen overnight. For some folks, I do meet with every week, and we may burn through those 12 weeks quicker than others. But largely out of the gate, it's, hey, let's meet 12 times. Let's do it over 6 months, every other week, and move through our time together.
Interesting. Yeah, I think biweekly is a good cadence. And it doesn't take too much time away from either side of the schedule. You have a lot of work to do on in the interim, right? In the in between time.
That's right. Yeah. So
Yeah.
at the end of the sessions, it's, hey, what's going on? What are we doing? Does this feel right? Can you commit to doing this in the next week or two by the time we meet? And sometimes that happens. Sometimes people accomplish it and sometimes they don't. And either way, we're learning about the situation and we're learning about the homework and why it was not a good fit, even though we said it was a good fit. Why did it ultimately become not a good fit? Well, that's a learning opportunity.
Right. Right. Interesting. So, how many clients can you handle and one time? What's your capacity look like?
Yeah, I'm ideally working with two folks a day.
Okay. Okay. So you can handle a pretty decent amount of clients with, as long as you don't overstretch yourself to be effective for the whole group.
That's
Right.
right. Yeah.
And so if somebody wanted to get in touch with you, what would be the best way to contact Nick Musica?
Yeah, you can go to nickmusica.com, uh, and you can fill out an application for one-on-one or for group coaching there. If you're looking to connect just because that seems like a better option. LinkedIn is the better place to do that. Let's keep in touch there.
And I really appreciate you coming on and giving this talk. And you know, what piece of advice would you give to either people that want to transition from corporate America into doing their own thing, or somebody that's already on their own path, but maybe like not hitting goals that they want to hit? And what would your biggest piece of advice be?
Oh yeah. We covered a couple different ways here to develop yourself, right? We talked about plant medicine, we talked about coaching, one-on-one, there's group, therapy was mentioned. You can get mentored. There's a bunch of different ways you can move forward to achieve what you want to do. I think the first thing is going to be, what am I looking to achieve? Why is it important to me? What's the cost of this not changing over the next 12 months? Like once you hunker down into what's important, using those three questions as the filter, see what feels like a good next step. We're going for the next right step here. And any of those methodologies, maybe something was like, oh, maybe something sparked interest in someone for reasons. Oh, I want to go to Costa Rica tomorrow, or coaching sounds good. Or maybe it's something else. So take a step in the right direction and see what's available for you and see how that shows up for you. But move forward. You got to move forward.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. What's the best right next step? Right. Is what's your next step, and how do we get there with a calculated plan? If there's any last words that you'd like to share with the guests, feel free.
Yeah, I would just underscore the last couple minutes, which is identify what you want to do and make some steps to do it. Just be clear about what you're looking to do, and it's a new year. I'm not a big fan of resolutions because man, they fall apart. But being clear on what you want out of the year and making a plan, and then to your point, chunking it up to get it done, super important.
Right. Right. Well, with that, I really thank you for the time. It's been a pleasure, and look forward to connecting again soon.
Cool. Thank you, John.